Stop. You haven't subscribed to the channel yet? Subscribe now. We have new stories every day. Now let's go. The late afternoon sun cast long shadows across the dashboard as Reese Mitchell navigated his Tesla through the winding suburban streets of Burlington. The car's quiet electric hum matched his measured breathing. He glanced occasionally at his wife, Marin, who was slumped in the passenger seat. Her dark hair fell like a curtain across her face, her head resting against the window. The lingering effects of anesthesia kept her drifting between consciousness and sleep. Dr. Harrison's warnings about post-procedure behavior echoed in Reese's mind. Some patients can be quite unpredictable coming out of sedation. The oral surgeon had said, adjusting his wire-rimmed glasses. Don't take anything they say too seriously for the next few hours. Standard advice for what should have been a routine day. 4 impacted wisdom teeth removed without complications. Reese had even taken the whole day off work to care for her, something his colleagues at the investment firm had teased him about. Taking a vacation day to play nurse, Marcus had joked during yesterday's meeting, "Man, you really are the perfect husband." The memory of their laughter now felt hollow. Reese adjusted his grip on the steering wheel, his gold wedding band catching the sunlight. Perfect husband, right? What time is it? Marin mumbled through the gauze packed in her cheeks, shifting slightly in her seat. Almost 5, Reese answered, keeping his voice gentle. We'll be home in about 10 minutes. How are you feeling? She adjusted the ice pack against her jaw, her designer watch, a gift from their last anniversary, glinting on her wrist. Like my head stuffed with cotton balls. Everything's floaty. That's normal, he reassured her. The anesthesia will take a few hours to wear off completely. You always have everything figured out, don't you? She turned toward him, her eyes glassy and unfocused. Perfect Reese with his perfect plans. Something in her tone made him glance over sharply. What do you mean by that? It's almost funny, she continued, her words becoming clear despite the gauze. How do you think you got everything under control? You're such a fool. I've been cheating right under your nose, and you haven't even noticed. The words hit him like a physical blow. His hands jerked on the steering wheel, causing the car to swerve sharply into the next lane. A horn blared as a red SUV shot past them, the driver's angry gesture barely registering. Jesus, Reese muttered, correcting the car's course. His heart hammered against his ribs. What did you just say? But Marin had already slumped back against the window, her breathing deep and regular. The confession, if that's what it was, seemed to have exhausted her remaining energy. Reese forced himself to focus on driving, even as his mind raced. People said crazy things under anesthesia. His cousin had apparently spent 10 minutes arguing with her oral surgeon about the existence of unicorns. This had to be something like that. It had to be. But the words had carried too much weight, too much specific bitterness to be random drug-induced rambling. The way she'd said it, right under your nose, rang with a clarity that cut through the anesthetic haze. Their driveway appeared ahead, and Reese pulled in automatically, muscle memory taking over where conscious thought failed him. The garage door opened with its familiar mechanical whir, revealing the organized space that had always been his pride. Tools arranged precisely on payboards, storage bins labeled and stacked, everything in its proper place. Order. Control. The illusion of mastery over his domain. He closed the garage door and sat there in the artificial light, studying his sleeping wife's face. Details he'd been overlooking suddenly demanded attention. The subtle makeup she'd insisted on applying even for a dental procedure. The expensive highlights in her hair, just feeling like a change. That had cost more than their monthly utility bill. The new perfume she'd started wearing recently with notes of jasmine she'd never favored before. Marin, he said, surprised by the steadiness of his own voice. We're home. Home, she stirred, blinking slowly. Already? Yeah, let me help you inside. Getting her out of the car was a careful operation. She was unsteady on her feet, requiring his support as they made their way through the mudroom and up the stairs. Each step felt surreal, his arm around her waist as intimate as ever, while his mind screamed with questions. Their bedroom was exactly as they'd left it that morning, bed made with military precision, decorative pillows arranged artfully, her touch. Everything in perfect order. The scene felt like a stage set now, artificial in its careful curation. I need to use the bathroom, Marin mumbled as he helped her sit on the edge of the bed. Are you sure you can manage? She nodded, then winced at the movement. I'm not completely helpless. Reese watched her make her way to their ensuite bathroom, her steps uncertain but determined. The door closed with a soft click that felt oddly final. Left alone, his eyes were drawn to her purse, sitting innocently on the dresser where he placed it earlier. The expensive leather bag had been a self-gift last month, another change he'd accepted without question. His hands trembled slightly as he approached it, guilt and anger warring in his chest as he began to search through it. The main compartment yielded nothing obviously suspicious, though he noticed several high-end cosmetic products he didn't recognize. But in a side pocket, he found her phone. The screen was locked. She changed the passcode recently, citing work security protocols as the reason. Another red flag he'd willfully ignored. The sound of running water from the bathroom spurred him to move quickly. Opening her wallet, he found a stack of receipts that told their own story. A charge from Giovanni's bistro last Thursday when she'd said she was working late, a coffee shop bill from 2 weeks ago during what was supposed to be a critical client meeting. Small discrepancies that were beginning to form a damning pattern. A notification lit up her phone screen. Meeting confirmed for Thursday. Just initials, no context, but it was enough to make his stomach turn. He carefully replaced everything exactly as he found it, years of meticulous habits serving him well even in crisis. The bathroom door opened, and Reese quickly stepped away from the dresser. Marin emerged looking slightly more alert, though still pale. Could you get me some water? She asked, making her way back to the bed. And maybe another ice pack. This one's getting warm. Of course, he was almost grateful for the excuse to leave the room, to have a moment to compose himself. In the kitchen, Reese went through the motions of filling a glass with filtered water and retrieving a fresh ice pack from the freezer. Their kitchen was a showcase of domestic perfection. High-end appliances, marble countertops, the expensive coffee maker he bought her for Christmas. How many of their carefully chosen possessions had been witnesses to her deceptions? When he returned upstairs, Marin was propped up against the headboard, scrolling through her phone. She quickly locked the screen when he entered, a gesture he'd seen countless times before but never questioned. Here you go, he said, helping her position the straw between swollen lips. Small sips. Thanks. She managed a few swallows before settling back. You're always so good at taking care of me. The words felt like acid in his ears. That's what husbands are for, right? She closed her eyes. I think I need to sleep for a while. Good idea. Doctor's orders, remember. Once she was settled with the fresh ice pack, Reese retreated to his home office across the hall. The space had always been his sanctuary. Dark wood furniture, leather chair, diplomas, and professional certificates arranged precisely on the walls. Now it felt like a command center for an investigation he never wanted to conduct. Opening his laptop, he bypassed his usual work emails and began scanning their shared calendar. Patterns emerged that he'd been too trusting, too stupid, to see before. Client meetings that always seemed to fall on Thursday evenings, professional development workshops that required overnight stays, girls' nights that had become more frequent but somehow produced fewer social media photos than they used to. His phone buzzed with a text from Lisa, Marin's sister. How did the procedure go? Is she doing okay? Reese stared at the message, wondering if Lisa was part of the deception. The sisters were close. Did she know? Was she covering for Marin? How many people had been watching him play the role of trusting husband, laughing at his willful blindness? Procedure went fine. He typed back. She's resting now. You're such a good husband, came Lisa's reply. She's lucky to have you. He set the phone face down on his desk, unable to stomach any more irony. Hours passed as he sat there, reconstructing their recent history through this new lens. The late-night work calls she took in the backyard, pacing the garden path he'd installed last summer. The mysterious gym sessions that never seemed to result in any visible changes. The new passwords on everything from her phone to her laptop. A memory surfaced from 3 weeks ago, walking into their bedroom to find her quickly closing her laptop, claiming she was just finishing up some work emails. He'd accepted it without question, even brought her a glass of wine and left her to it. Had she been messaging her lover then, planning another rendezvous while he played the role of attentive husband? The sound of movement from their bedroom drew his attention. Checking his watch, he realized it was past 8. He'd been sitting there for hours, building a mental case file of suspicions and circumstantial evidence. His stomach growled, reminding him he hadn't eaten since breakfast, but the thought of food made him nauseous. He found Marin attempting to sit up, more coherent than before, but still moving gingerly. "What time is it?" she asked, wincing as she touched her swollen cheek. "Just after 8, he answered, helping her adjust her pillows. "How's the pain?" "Not great, but not terrible." She looked around slightly confused. "Have I been asleep this whole time?" "Pretty much. You were pretty out of it after the procedure." She frowned lightly. "Did I say anything weird in the car or anything?" "Everything's kind of fuzzy." Reese felt his heart rate spike, but kept his voice casual. "Nothing important, just typical anesthesia babbling." The relief that crossed her face was subtle but unmistakable. "Good. I was worried I might have embarrassed myself." "No more than usual," he said, forcing a smile that felt like it might crack his face. "Want some water?" As he helped her drink through a straw, Reese studied her face. Did she remember what she'd said? Was there any trace of guilt in her expression? But the swelling made it hard to read her features, and the lingering effects of the anesthesia masked any telling reactions. "My phone," she said suddenly. "Where is it?" "In your purse on the dresser. Want me to get it?" "Please." He retrieved it, watching as she immediately checked her messages. Her thumb moved with practiced speed, dismissing notifications before he could see them. Another small detail that now seemed significant. "Work stuff," she explained without being asked. "Never stops, even when you're down for the count." "Anything important?" he probed, keeping his tone light. "Just the usual drama. Nothing that can't wait until I'm back on my feet." The lies flowed so naturally from her lips. How long had this been going on? How many casual deceptions had he accepted without question? "You should rest," he said, unable to keep watching this performance. "Doctor's orders." "You're right," she agreed, settling back against the pillows. "Thank you for taking such good care of me." The words twisted in his gut like a knife. He managed to nod before retreating from the room, closing the door behind him. Back in his office, Reese opened a private browser window and began researching divorce attorneys in their area. He wasn't ready to make any moves yet. He needed proof. Real proof. Not just suspicions and circumstantial evidence. But he could start preparing. The night stretched on as he made notes, researched legal strategies, and began documenting everything he could remember that might be relevant. One thing became increasingly clear. Confronting her directly would be worse than useless. She would deny it, make him feel paranoid, maybe even turn it around on him somehow. No, if he wanted the truth and justice, he would need to be smarter than that. He would need to gather evidence, build an airtight case, and prepare for the worst while maintaining a perfect facade of normalcy. As midnight approached, Reese heard Marin's phone buzz again in the bedroom. Another late-night message from someone who clearly knew she might be awake. His jaw clenched, but he forced himself to stay in his chair, to resist the urge to storm in and demand answers. The wedding photo on his desk caught his eye, their smiling faces frozen in a moment of perceived perfection. 12 years of marriage built on what he thought was an unshakable foundation of trust and respect. Now he wondered if any of it had been real. One thing was certain, he would never forgive this betrayal. The trust they'd built over 12 years had been shattered by a single drug-induced confession, and no amount of explanations or apologies could ever restore it. Looking at their wedding photo, Reese felt a cold determination settle over him. He would find out everything. He would document it all, and when the time was right, he would use that information to ensure that Marin lost everything she had tried to steal from him, his dignity, his trust, and their shared future. From now, though, he had to play the role of the caring, oblivious husband. It was a performance that would require all his self-control, but he was ready for it. After all, he wasn't the only one in this marriage who could keep secrets. In the quiet of his office, Reese began to plan. Each betrayal would be documented, each lie recorded, each piece of evidence carefully preserved. And when he finally revealed everything, there would be no room for denial, no possibility of reconciliation. The man who had driven his wife to her dental appointment that morning was gone, replaced by someone colder, more calculating. Someone who would match Marin's deception with his own brand of calculated patience. Let her think she had fooled him. Let her believe her secret was safe. He would play the long game, gathering evidence while maintaining the facade of their perfect marriage. And in the end, she would learn that some betrayals come with consequences that no amount of tears or apologies could erase. End of story.